good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the Double A Battery Podcast. I'm your host, Augustine. This is your hostess, Avneet. And today we're going to be talking about an ongoing rap beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. It's definitely a topic that is not new to the culture of hip hop. We've seen back and forth for many decades, and this one is just as interesting as the rest.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the Kendrick versus Drake feud, in which we'll be exploring the chronological order of each diss track, each member's side of the story, and our own opinion of this matter. So, Augustine, would you like to kick it off?
Of course. So this all started on March 22nd, 2024, with the release of Future and Metro Boomin's album We Do Not Trust You, where one of the tracks was called Like That, and lo and behold, a feature from Kendrick Lamar shook up the internet because of all the stuff that he was saying. Then it took a couple of weeks, but Drake, he responded. He first leaked his song on the internet, and then afterwards he saw that the fans were really vibing with it, and then that's when he decided to officially release it. He decided to release Push-Ups on April 19th, 2024. And then similarly, a couple of weeks had gone by, and Euphoria from Kendrick Lamar had been released, whereas Family Matters, it only took a couple of days for Drake to respond with Family Matters. However, for Kendrick Lamar, it took only 45 minutes to respond later. Later that evening, he responded to Drake with Meet the Grams. The same day, May 3rd, just 45 minutes later. The following day, Kendrick Lamar decided to double down on everything he had already mentioned in that original song with Not Like Us. And then finally, on that following day, May 5th, Drake decided to respond to all of the allegations, all the stuff that had been mentioned in the past with the Heart Part 6. And so all of this information was gathered from Time Magazine. The creator of this article was named Mendez, and this was all created on May 6th. It was just giving a time breakdown of everything that had been going on these past couple of weeks. And so, with that being said, would you like to talk about Drake's side of the beef?
Yeah, so on Drake's side of the spectrum, he made one of the songs Push-Ups, where he makes fun of Kendrick Lamar for featuring in pop songs and tries to put him in his place, calling him a pipsqueak at one point. And one of the lyrics says, "How the F you big stepping with a size 7 man's on," referring to his shoe size and saying like, "Oh, you're talking all this mess, but you're a little tiny guy." But regarding that, he also made a song called Family Matters, where he accuses Lamar's child of having a different father and accusations of physical abuse and unfaithfulness against Lamar's fiancée, Whitney Alford. In this, he says, "You, the Black Messiah, wifing up a mixed queen, and hit vanilla cream to help out with your self-esteem," which refers to his unfaithfulness towards his wife and saying, "Oh, look, hey, you're cheating on her with someone else." And in this song, during the video part of the song, he also has a replica of Kendrick Lamar's Good Kids album, where he has the car and he completely demolishes it to show like, "Hey, I'm better than you, take that." And another song we have is The Heart Part 6, where Drake admits to purposely feeding Kendrick Lamar fake information about having a secret daughter to see if he would take the bait, since Drake technically did hide his son Adonis from the world until it came out. And he also informs us that his relationship with Millie Bobby Brown is strictly just a friendship, quote unquote. And in the song, he says, "We plotted for a week, then we fed you the information. A daughter that's 11 years old, I bet he takes it," which refers to Drake and his team conspiring having a fake daughter to see if Kendrick Lamar's to show that Kendrick Lamar doesn't fact check his information and just takes whatever he can to take a jab at him. And with that, we're gonna go head on to Kendrick's side. Would you like to start?
Yes, of course. So with Kendrick's side, he has a couple of songs that he talks about all of these different issues about Drake and stuff. The first of four was on, like I said, Future and Metro Boomin's album, with the song Like That. He has a feature of around like 45 seconds to around a minute, and this feature was mostly the one that had like began it all. He calls out Drake for sneak dissing him and these last couple of years, saying he also says that he's the best out of the three and to completely disregard the big three. In one of the lyrics of the song, he quotes, "Mother F the big three, it's just big me." Basically alluding that there is no competition between him, Drake, and as well as J. Cole. He also says that Drake's best work is light work compared to his best work, alluding to Drake's work being not that good compared to the catalog that Kendrick Lamar has. Something to keep in mind as well is that Kendrick Lamar's albums have mostly all won Grammys. They've all been critically acclaimed, and a lot of the hip hop community recognizes Kendrick Lamar as like one of the greatest rappers of all time. And so, with that being said, this feature was mostly just to initiate the beef. Kendrick Lamar wants to make it known to the world that he does not like Drake, and that he also does not want anyone to put him in the same category as any of these other artists, that he's in a league of his own. On the following song, Euphoria, it's a 6.5 minute to 7 minute track full of double and triple entendres. He has three beat switches throughout the songs, and it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. I remember analyzing this song, and I was like, "Dang, there's just so much to take in." So with this song, there's a lot of different points to go off of where Kendrick Lamar states that Drake doesn't have any creativity. He doesn't have all of his work is unoriginal. He states that he has ghostwriters. And in the original song from Family Matters, Drake mentions how it's a 20v1 and that he's still winning. But Kendrick Lamar in that song flips it to a 1v20. In that song, Kendrick Lamar states, "This ain't a 20v1, so 1v25 gotta smack people that write with you." And when he says that, that basically means that he has like this whole league of ghostwriters that writes up all of his best work, and that Kendrick Lamar is worthy of taking all of them down one by one, even if it means that he has to go against all of them. He also mentions, and this is really interesting to look at too, he mentions how Drake is essentially a culture vulture, in that he takes all of these different aspects from other rappers and he kind of just takes it as his own. There's not really a level of authenticity to any of his work. And Kendrick Lamar really digs in with these accusations as well. He also mentions how Drake has an identity crisis because he is mixed. His mother and his dad are not of the same race, and he said that he constantly has a back and forth between that, whether he wants to recognize one side or the other, and that it doesn't really bring into the authenticity that he claims to have. He also mentions how not just Kendrick Lamar, but also the entire rap community as a whole does not rock with him. That they do not like, specifically on the song it mentions, "We don't like the women that you be having relations with," and it's just not me. I'm what the culture's feeling. Basically alluding that Kendrick Lamar is the culture's person, and Drake isn't a part of any of that. On the following song, Meet the Grams, it's a response to Family Matters. And this one takes a more sinister twist as Kendrick Lamar talked about a lot of very heavy topics. In this song, he starts off by saying, "Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father." And he essentially, throughout this entire verse, or this entire first part of the verse, talking about, "Hey, I'm sorry that your man is your father. I wish you the best. If you want to come under my wing, I can take you, and I can be a much better role model than this man can." He also continues the verse by going at his parents as well, saying that they did not do a very good job of of raising him, and it's just very twisted the way that he literally like looks at every part of his family, and he kind of just breaks that down. He does not like this guy at all. He does not like this guy. And the next part of the song takes a very disturbing twist as he mentions how Drake is a pedophile and that he's a sex trafficker along with all of his group members. He says that there's people at his label called OVO that are sex offenders, and that Drake keeps his son Adonis around him, around those people, and that it's not a very good influence on him. He also mentioned the following verse that he's hiding another child, and this is very reminiscent of Pusha T's previous beef with Drake, where on his song "The Story of Adidon," I think it's called, he mentions Adonis, and he says that you're hiding another child from the world. And while Drake first denies these allegations at first, he eventually brings it to light. He recognized that Adonis is his son, and the fact that Kendrick Lamar brings this other accusation to the song, it's a very telling about Drake's character, and it's very telling about Kendrick Lamar as well, because he knows what can get the audience riled up. He knows where to dig where it hurts, and in this entire song, it's a very, 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 very deep deconstruction of Drake's personality and of everyone that's around him, and he just kind of goes point by point explaining how basically he's not a very good person, and that he shouldn't be around the entire community as a whole. In the last part of the song, on this track, Kendrick Lamar mentions how you lied about your son, your daughter, the accent that you have from Toronto, all of your ghostwriters, the surgery that you had, as well as your crew. And he also mentioned how he lied about himself, basically saying that Drake has nothing worthy of being redeemed, and that he's basically on his own when it comes to redeeming himself and all of that. He already tried to help him out, and it didn't work out, so he's just kind of leaving him be. And so in the following track, Not Like Us, he continues to double down on these allegations of his crew being all sex offenders and Drake being a pedophile as well, where throughout this very vibey, very upbeat song, he has these contrasting, very dark lyrics where, he's talking about, if you're any woman who wants to date Drake, don't bring your little sister with him, because he's gonna. You can imagine the rest. But he also mentions how, like in the previous song, he's also a cultural vulture, and that he specifically mentions all these different artists from Atlanta, and how he kind of just got stuff from their own personality, and he kind of took that in as his own without it's just essentially him not being authentic. And Kendrick Lamar really makes sure to establish that point so that the audience know that Drake is not an authentic rapper. He gets all of his popularity and fame by doing stuff that is not of his own. He's not an actual rapper in his own eyes. He also mentions how in that cover art that his own crew members are sex offenders. On the cover art, it has this Google Maps image of his big mansion, I believe in Toronto or some part of the US, and it has these red stickers on it, and each of those red stickers represents a sex offender, and he has I think 8 to 12 of them on that, and it just shows that he really does think that all these members that Drake is hanging out with are not good people, and that they all should be registered or are registered. We don't know, but in these last couple of songs, Kendrick Lamar goes really into detail with all these different accusations, and he doesn't hold back at all, which I think is something that definitely kept fueling the beef further and further until it reaches this point where both of these artists have all these accusations to kind of go after, and Kendrick Lamar, I believe, makes it known to the world that there's all of these stuff to talk about Drake. And so with that being said, would you like to continue on with the evaluation of this segment?
Yeah, of course. So I find the beef to be pretty insane. I mean, it went from little child jabs, calling a pipsqueak and little things like that, or saying, oh, well, it's not just the big three, it's just big me.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's getting to the point where it's getting very serious. I mean, in Meet the Grands, that song was pretty crazy. I mean, talking to a child saying, hey, I'm sorry that this is your father.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel bad for the kid.
Right. And I also think that in terms of how serious all of these allegations are, it definitely tears down at each of their own reputations, especially of that of Kendrick Lamar and Drake, but also those that are around them too, because I feel like it's also shedding light on the type of people that they are, and if you're willing to hang out with these people, then maybe you're not as good of a person as you are. I know that on Drake's end, for example, all these people that he hangs out with, they're getting a lot of negativity from the community as a result of working with him.
Yeah, exactly. And like we can see that many artists are siding with Kendrick. I mean, not to mention like Kanye and like Future, also Rick Ross. Rick Ross is he's very, very team Kendrick. I mean, he's currently creating like a mansion, and in one of his videos he has a koi pond, and he said that he's going to name one of the fishes in the koi pond Drake.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's just really funny to see in light of all the negativity and like darkness of this beef. It's really funny to see all the jokes that are being made about this. More specifically, a producer named Metro Boomin, he created with a beat for other rappers to use. It's called the BBL Drizzy beat, and there's a multitude of different artists that have hopped on that beat and just like made their own songs. I think one of my personal favorites is one that's created by Miles. He hopped on the BBL Drizzy beat, and it's perfect. Honestly, I recommend listening to that song.
Oh, definitely. Many people had so much fun with creating, especially since Drake's new nickname is BBL Drizzy. They've been making some pretty crazy drawings of him and
Right.
saying that he's wearing shapewear to accentuate his BBL and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's just been really crazy to see how far this rap beef has gone in terms of the accusations, but also how divided the hip hop community is right now, because you have this contrast between popularity and authenticity between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Drake definitely has the highest of high streams. He's one of the most famous artists probably to ever live. And on the other spectrum, you have Kendrick Lamar, who, while he's not as popular, he's not on the same level as Drake is. He also has produced some like phenomenal albums. He is widely recognized as a very good lyricist, and seeing those two kind of collide, it's very interesting to see how the audience they take that in, and they kind of have to pick a side between, oh, do I want to go with what a lot of people consider to be the most popular artist, or do I want to side with someone who is definitely a very skilled lyricist, has definitely gained his right to speak trash on anyone. But I think the contrast between the two is definitely interesting to analyze.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like especially since Kendrick is from Compton, California, he is very well recognized within the west side of the country, which is why in his song, Not Like Us, he uses a more like California type beat to basically bring together his audience and be like, hey, Drake and his fans are not like us. We are better, we are stronger, we are not pedophiles.
And I think to definitely clear up on all of this beef, I know a lot of people say, I've seen a lot of audience members say that one side created really bad diss tracks, the other side created bad diss tracks. I feel like it's fair to say that both of these artists created really compelling diss tracks, and it's not like there's any specific highlight or low light with any of these diss tracks. I feel like all of them, they had their own little like nuances and little things to say about the other artists that just kind of that kind of just elevates it compared to all the other diss tracks.
Yeah, exactly. I see just because, Kendrick made songs like Boom 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 right after another one, but I think that both artists did like a very good job like accentuating their jabs and their little hits and stuff like that. But the real question is, what team are you on?
So I know there's this hashtag going around, like hashtag Drake, hashtag Kendrick Lamar. Personally, I go hashtag Kendrick Lamar. What about you?
I mean, as a California person as well, West Side baby, I'm gonna have to say Team Kendrick.
Right. And I feel like there's definitely arguments to be made for both sides as to who do you think won? Do you think that Drake won? Do you think that Kendrick Lamar won? And I think something to think about as well is that on specifically on Drake's side, whether or not those allegations of the hidden child are true or not, he definitely could have made a better job of saying, this is not real, this is not something that is true about me. I feel like with the Heart Part 6, he kind of just doubled down on mostly defending himself and no longer taking jabs at anything else that Kendrick Lamar has. He's kind of just restating things that have already said in previous diss tracks. And because of him taking this more defensive route, a lot of people have seen that, this is like essentially waving a white flag and just him kind of like abiding out of the rap beef. And for a lot of people, because of that, they see that Kendrick Lamar won.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with all this new like found footage of Drake coming out with him being at Dave and Buster's DJing and like also videos of him at one of his older concert with a minor and like hugging on her and stuff like that. So a lot of videos and information has been coming out. So
Right.
it's a bit harder for Drake to protect himself now.
Right. And I feel like the main thing about Drake is that he has this uplift on Kendrick Lamar in that he did or did not, you never know with the hidden child, you never know because in the past, he hid Adonis at first and then, he was basically forced to come out with that information. So we'll never truly know until, the day comes that, whether or not that child is actually his, whether there is a child at all. And I feel like because of that, because of the way that Drake responded to that and the way that Kendrick Lamar just insinuates all of this on top of those other very serious allegations, I believe that in that aspect, Kendrick Lamar won the beef.
Yeah, I would have to say the same, especially with one of the covers of Kendrick Lamar's song. He has a shirt, a glove, and bottles of medications and a receipt that are all supposed to be from Drake's. And one of the medication is, I believe, Ozempic, which Drake jabbed at Rick Ross for using Ozempic, which is to help fall asleep. And so Kendrick having Ozempic in his cover art is like a show like, hey, you made fun of this person for taking it, but you are over here taking it as well.
Right.
And that I have people who are supposed to be your friends, but they're working for me.
Right, and something that he also mentioned as well, Kendrick Lamar mentions, is that there are these moles in Drake's camp, the OVO label that continuously feeds this information to him. And in these later songs, Family Matters and The Heart Part 6 from Drake, he says that, he basically doesn't know who those people are. He says in The Heart Part 6 that the information about the child is fake and that they were scheming about that. But then he also mentions that, the people who release that information are clowns. So it's kind of that decision whether or not he actually knows who those people are or if he's just trolling this entire time, which to be honest, I think it's very hard to believe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like Drake's at this point where he's been like hit so many times that he's like struggling to find a new jab to make at Kendrick because now he's just repeating his information and just like making up stuff and being like, oh, you guys are clowns, and just basically being defeated now.
And I do see that these last couple of days there hasn't been really much talk about it. It's definitely been a decline in like information that's been released. And so we've seen that maybe this rap beef has been concluded. Maybe they have kind of taken their own side and, want to move on from it. But I think in the public eye, they definitely, want more. They want more information. They want more of this beef. And it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens in these next couple of months in terms of that.
Yeah, exactly. And like other artists that are supposed to be included in this beef, like J. Cole, we can see pictures of him like at the beach with his family, just relaxing, and like many other artists just like going to Disneyland, going to random country clubs and stuff like that.
It's definitely interesting to see how J. Cole has responded to all of this, as at first he also wanted in on this beef. He released his own diss track on Kendrick Lamar, and he essentially just rescinds that from the public eye. And I believe in the concert a couple days later, he publicly said, I don't want anything in this beef. It felt wrong for me to say all these things, and so he basically apologized, and he got flamed for it very hard by the audience. He was saying a lot of people were blaming him at first for pulling out, but I think in retrospect, it was probably the best decision for him because seeing how many allegations have come out, how much information is being said, being thrown around by these two parties, I think it definitely makes sense that he pulled out and he didn't want any part of that.
Yeah, exactly. And not to mention, like, Little Yachty, apparently he caught a stray little jab at him, and he immediately posted it on Twitter. It was an accident, to be like, hey, I don't want anything to deal with this.
Right. And I think that goes to show how like deep this goes because all these different artists, I'm sure they have some type of beef with Drake or Kendrick Lamar, but they essentially just don't want smoke.
Yeah, exactly. And I just find it funny how like everyone wants to know about the beef, but no one wants to be included. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely interesting to analyze all of this and just seeing how it's just culminated as a result is definitely interesting to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I find it, especially going back to the whole culture vulture thing, I think that it's very, like, it's a strong point because since Kendrick grew up in Compton, he has the credibility to be like, hey, I'm actually from here. I know what people have been dealing with, and I know what they've been through. And exactly in like one of his songs, Not Like Us, he talks about how the rich would put peasants and make them work and call them slaves and stuff like that in order for them to get rich. So he just shows there like, hey, I am from here. You came from Canada to Atlanta and you had to get your own street credit.
And also included in Family Matters and Not Like Us as well, Drake mentions that Kendrick Lamar only makes music to free the slaves. He states that on Family Matters, I believe around halfway through the song. Yeah. And then I think it was really clever how Kendrick Lamar kind of comes back at that, saying how, oh, you want to say all of this, but you're not actually from, like, you're not about that culture. You say that this culture is mine. You're not actually from that culture. You got all of this authenticity and credibility from other artists that had to help you with that. And I think that was a really strong jab from Kendrick Lamar in terms of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of find it funny how Drake said that Kendrick Lamar is making like pop music, but then when you look at Drake's music, like even though it's technically rap, it's mostly played at like birthday parties and like clubs and stuff. So I kind of find it like Drake's music is also sort of the like pop genre as well.
Exactly. And I think it's interesting too to see how a lot of these little jabs, whether that's the pay cut 50-50 with Kendrick Lamar and Drake's as well, allegedly saying that he's signed to a person, signed to a person, signed to another person. It kind of goes from like all these little like minuscule details, and it kind of slowly adds up and slowly builds up to a lot more sinister allegations as well.
Yeah, especially I think the hardest hitting song out of the whole Kendrick Lamar collection is Meet the Grams. Like he gets very, very personal in there, especially talking to Drake's mother, like, oh, I hope your son dies, he's a horrible person,
Right.
And just making jabs like, oh, you raised him wrong, just very, very serious things.
And definitely a lot of these later tracks are definitely hard hitting, and they bring out a lot of information about another artist, and whether that's true or not, putting that out there, putting that out into the world, it is definitely interesting to see how each of these fan bases takes it as a whole. Yeah, it's just crazy, honestly.
Yeah, I find it interesting how as soon as all of these allegations are starting to come out about like him or Drake being into children and stuff like that, like many people have like new information and new like resources about it, like especially the girl who was at the concert with Drake and who was being like all touched up on. She came out and was talking about the situation, and many other people are now starting to come out and be like, hey, yeah, this happened, and just putting in a bunch of more information.
And I think also tying back to the people who continuously go to Drake's mansion and just to kind of do all of that stuff, it shows how obsessed these two fan bases are with one another. And I think it's definitely interesting to see just how far they're willing to take it over an artist that You know, at the end of the day, they don't know them. They just listen to their music.
Yeah, exactly. And people have been, ever since Drake's IP address has been leaked in the song Not Like Us, people have been going to his mansion, shooting it up, you know, doxing it, and and there's also been police involvement now regarding the human trafficking.
Hmm. I definitely think that these two fan bases have taken it a little bit too far. You know, in my eyes, it's okay to like an artist, but past that, I feel like it's just kind of doing too much. You never want to take it farther than what is considered normal in this day and age. Definitely going to these other people's houses, it's just a step too far.
Yeah, exactly. And I would like to say like the whole circle, like everything is coming into a circle, like especially the XXX Temptation fans. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but they're rejoiced because they're like, oh my goodness, Drake is finally getting what he deserves, because apparently some people say that Drake is the one who killed him, but that is just what the allegations say.
I wonder if that will ever be mentioned in any forthcoming rap beefs, whether this one has already concluded or not, or any other ones that might, you know, begin. Whether that whole allegation about XXX being killed by Drake will ever be truly clear, because at the end of the day, like a lot of these allegations, we will never know until there's concrete proof.
Yeah, exactly. And like with the whole X situation, like Drake, well, apparently Drake copied X's flow in one of his songs. And so ever since that happened, they've been saying back and forth, you know, like, hey, why'd you do this? Oh, I have beef with you now. And a while ago, X posted on his Instagram saying that if I were to die, then it was Drake who killed me. And he put his Instagram champagne poppy on the story.
Yeah, it's just crazy how deep the lore goes. A lot of people think it's just, oh, they just don't like each other. They want to say all these serious allegations about each other just for content, just for the public eye. But I think also it just goes a lot deeper than a lot of people think.
Yeah, exactly. And I just find it like, it's crazy how much like since all this stuff is going on, like there's more and more and more information. Like you can just go on TikTok right now,
Right.
just scroll a couple times and you'll find even more information.
Right. And I think with that, we reached the end of our podcast. So today we talked about the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar beef. We went over the chronological order of each of the songs as well as each rapper's side of the beef. And we gave our own personal evaluation around the whole beef. So with that being said, are you team Drake or are you team Kendrick? Please let us know. Have a good day and thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The exponential growth from the program from my first year to my third year now, that's what keeps me coming back and keeps me excited and just like fulfills me as a person.
It's so impressive, and we every time we walk in here, you guys are doing something different. It's great. It's
nothing but opportunities here, and we have sports to cover, we have the equipment.
Because the more ambitious you are, the more opportunities you'll have.
On-the-job training is huge.
Get the hands-on experience.
When someone asks who can do it, you know, you can raise your hand and say, I can do it, so.
Joining the class was the best decision I ever made.
Stand by, we're going to go to cut one. And cut one.
Cross court to Audrey Jones. Audrey for three! It is good! With 1.3 seconds left on the game clock, Audrey Jones with one of the biggest shots ever.
The sky's the limit, really, with what we can do here.